Hello everyone, Nathan here. So I thought I'd do something a little bit fun and opinionated for this video. I'm going to list my top 10 Final Fantasy main characters designs in rank order. And I'm going to be breaking down what I like best about them from my point of view. And as someone who has designed characters for games and comics in the past, hopefully this will be something that you character artists and role players as well as you gamers out there find useful. So this is the first part, so it will cover number 10 to number 6. And these are the rules. The first rule is that only their base clothes within that game are allowed. So for example, not all of Lightning's outfits or all of Noctis's outfits are allowed. And the second rule is that all entries are allowed if it includes the main characters from the main numbered series. So Lightning's main outfits from all 3 of her main games are allowed, as well as anything outside that she's in. So let's start off with number 10. So in 10th place we have Zidane, and this is Zidane's design from Dissidia. So for starters, he has a tail, and that's cool. It's also cool that he can use the tail, and he does a few times within the game. He has a brilliant silhouette, which you'll find is a common thing among the characters that I've chosen. You know it's him straight away, and the colour choice is pretty good. Fairly standard Final Fantasy white is something else, and that something else in this case is a light blue. I like that it draws on the clothing of a disassembled Victorian nobleman, I guess, more than your usual standard warrior gear. And I think that he doesn't quite look like a warrior or look particularly dangerous, and that's part of his charm, that whole sort of thief look that he has. And it's also part of what makes him one of the more interesting main characters in the series, and that's in terms of his personality and in terms of his design, especially considering that the rest are mostly soldiers. He also has brilliant boots, and I honestly feel like they looked at these boots or returned to this sort of design language when they were designing the new Shinra troop gear for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And that black and white balance is always really good. One thing I don't like though about this outfit is the cuffs. They just seem so strange and pointless. They're not armlets or armor, they're just cuffs. I mean, they might be attached to his gloves, but still, why are they there? The white expanse in his stomach has always bothered me too, and I feel like a line or buttons or filigree or something around there might have made that gap a bit more interesting and, you know, suit a bit better rather than being this random break in his clothing. In 9th place we have the Warrior of Light, and this is his Dissidia armor. So the Warrior of Light from the original Final Fantasy, as his seen in the artwork there, and his design that came through to the actual Dissidia game, we know technically he's not in Final Fantasy as such, this design, but you know, he represents your hero and he was on the front cover, so he counts. So he's got a brilliant silhouette once again. I mean, those horns, the spikes, the skirt, they're all brilliant, and they make his figure very distinct, very easily recognizable. He's got a good balance of color with the blue, the yellow, the white, and he's got these really nice shapes to him. And it's got quite a few flowing bits. He's got the helmet, the sword, his cape, his skirt, those flowing bits of fabric that are really good for showing movement or wind blowing. And it's just a solid and practical warrior design that we recognize but still stands out as unique. My favorite part about his design is actually the not so functional horns. I find it quite rare to find heroes with horns of this shape and size on their heads. This tends to be reserved for villains quite a lot, and so, you know, I quite like the way it works, and it somehow adds to his sort of really noble heroic look, and it's echoed throughout his design with the spikes that pop up all over the armor. It's a really good design. The only drawbacks from this design is that it's undoubtedly the gear of a knight or a warrior, and although it's interesting, it does lack a bit of the oomph and personality of other characters, despite its complexity. And maybe that's because the Warrior of Light himself is pretty much your standard stereotypical hero. But yeah, still a brilliant, good design. Number 8 is Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, and I personally think his original design is the best design, so the one that he has within the game. Now, this is interesting because technically it wouldn't look out of place in our world, so it's not that fantasy based. We've got an okay silhouette, nothing special or that recognizable, but I just like the fact that the dark, cold and simple colours reflects his personality, his history, and what he essentially is, a child soldier. His design is a bit metal, but rather average, and that's part of the charm. I'm a big fan of the belts. I like the puffy jacket, hate the puffy gloves though, but I love the puffy fur too. So just the balance of these really simple elements make for a simple but really well designed outfit that reflects the character himself. The Griever pendant is also a nice touch as well, and as for the face and hair, that's a really standard look. No striking hair colour, so no whites like the Warrior of Light, but it's just fine. And sometimes that banality, that mundanity is what you need in a design, and it works, and it's memorable. Number 7 is Cloud from Advent Children. Now this is one I constantly argue with my brother Noah about. Is Cloud's design from Advent Children better than his standard design? Well, to me that answer is no. There are elements that are really good. We have a much more distinct silhouette and actual movable parts due to the sleeve and the leg sash, and they also help to make the design a lot less symmetrical, something that I think was a problem in the majority of the original Final Fantasy VII designs. All the cast, a lot of them had a lot of symmetricality, much more than we normally see in Final Fantasy. And I'm also a massive fan of his vest. The rib texture is great, the zip is good for breaking up all the black, and everyone loves this pauldron. How can you not love the pauldron? The little Fenrir wolf head is a very nice touch, bringing together the silver from the sword, the buckles, the zip and the earring. It's just really great balance. Now, what I don't like is the baggy trousers. They just seem a bit much. The massiveness of the arm and the leg and the sleeve and those trousers, I just think they're a bit too much. And I do think that they could have been a little bit smaller. And of course, that horrendous glove that makes him look like it belongs on a ball gown. I don't understand why it's there. What happened to the bangles for Materia? That's what he should have had on his arm. Don't you find it interesting though that his clothes heavily resemble Sephiroth's? I think that's a nice touch, very good choice, and adds a little bit more meaning to the outfit and its place within the story, and Cloud's place within the story. And our final character design for this video, which is number 6, is Firion from Dissidia. That's Firion from Final Fantasy II, but his design in Dissidia. Now, I call this the beetle armor. The thing looks like a bug carapace, but I really like it. It's a nice piece of practical armor, broken up by a piece of cloth, just like the Warrior of Light. In fact, for all intents and purposes, the armor is almost identical to the Warrior of Lights. It's just been stripped back a bit. If you look at them side by side, you'll notice that the placement of the cloth and the placement of metal armor and the hair color and the spikes, yeah, they're very identical. Firion's is pretty much just a travel-friendly version of the Warrior of Light's armor. But because of that, it looks more comfortable and easier for him to move in, and I just like it more. It lends itself more to the long journey that Final Fantasy characters always end up undertaking. And we've got these really good organic shapes and these less sharp edges and more curves and circles and overlaps, and I really think that works well. And his headpiece, the sort of semi-head wrap, at first it seems a bit out of place, but I find it a much more interesting alternative to a standard helmet or hood. And yeah, it just works. And I do, however, wish that there was more of the orange and yellow and red that we see on his weapons and the head wrap. I wish that there was a bit more of that throughout his armor. I think that it's a bit of a lost opportunity to break up that black and grey of the beetle bug carapace that we've got going on there. So yeah, that's it. Those are the first 5 of my top 10 best main character designs for Final Fantasy. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you agree with these, or would you have had it in a different order? And what do you think my order is going to be for the next 5? Let me know down in the comments below. I'll have the next one out fairly soon, and I think you'll probably be surprised by my number 1. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Until next time.